Hello and welcome to my video. This is a Zoom class on May 24th, I think it is today, which means it'll be on YouTube at the same time you're watching it now, which for you is sometime tomorrow evening, but for me it hasn't happened yet. So usual stuff, except this is going to be a seascape, and you can probably see that I've got a line across there, pencil line. I may not use that. I may come down a little bit for the horizon somewhere down here, but we'll see how it goes. And this is based on a painting I did a few years ago, actually. And I'll put it on the screen now. But this one is going to have a little bit more colour in it. That one that you're looking at is a bit grey and dismal. Well, I don't know. Dismal. What is dismal? Dismal is moody sometimes, and I quite like moody paintings. So all I'm doing is just mixing up some Payne's grey and ultramarine. So let's just start off. So if that is going to be my horizon, let's just put a line across there. Let's put even if I'm not going to use it, it's still a good guide. So let's just have a line there. Try not to make it wander too much. So I think we're going to have a dark sky coming right down. Notice I've bent to the horizon. That's okay. I'm just sort of getting my bearings on the painting. I'm going to have a dark sky coming down here over the sea. So I'll punch that up with a bit more Payne's grey. I don't know how to tell you about the oil. A reasonable amount of oil, but it doesn't fly off. When I do this, it doesn't actually come off on the painting. It doesn't drip. Let's have a little bit more grey in there. So I'm going to just sort of invent a sky quickly. I was trying to decide whether to start in the middle and work down and do all the bottom part first, but I think I've definitely got the hots for the clouds today, so I think we'll go there. Okay, let's just take that across. Now, even though that may be a lighter bit of sky here, I'm making it dark to start with. And that is because, it's the way of oil paint. You've got to start dark. Unless, of course, it's a bit of sky that was going to be completely white, then I wouldn't do this. But the only completely white bit in the sky is probably just going to be the cloud or two. Or three. I can never actually control the amount of clouds that I'm going to paint. So let's just get some colour on there, but predominantly dark on the left-hand side of the painting. Now this is thin paint. I always tell people don't put piles and piles of paint on, unless that's your style. I mean, some people paint just with a palette knife and literally just shovel paint onto the surface. That's not my way of doing it. I toyed with the idea briefly before I went to art school. There was an artist, I cannot remember his name, but it was something like, odd name, what was it? Could have been, it may sound silly, because if I've got it completely wrong, it'll sound silly, but the signature looked like Doily John on the painting that I saw, probably a print that I saw actually, and it was Italianesque scenes with absolute piles of paint, no brushwork at all, just a palette knife. And I sort of toyed with the idea of trying to do something like that one day, and found that it really wasn't for me. But anyway, so that's very thin paint. Now I'm working on plywood. I think it's 3 or 4 millimeters thick plywood, which means there's no cotton grain, there's no canvas grain, so I can sort of wipe things away reasonably successfully like that. If it's canvas, you might have to add either turpentine if you're going to use it, or oil to actually dilute the paint to get it off. If you work on board like this, you can just sort of go back almost to white. With some colours, You can go back to white. It's just that blue is a very strong pigment. So let's just sort of play with some blue shapes. So these shapes, you see, looks like chaos at the moment, but these shapes will turn into clouds. Well, I don't know whether people are fed up with hearing this, but clouds are always better when you don't try too hard. And when you actually don't try to paint clouds. So let's just see that even though I put dark on, I can go light, and I've got several tones working in that area there. So you need lots of these, which start out life like that. And that should be good for about 4 or 5 paintings. So let's see what happens when we just get a whole load of more, actually, a whole load more of Payne's grey and ultramarine. Now you may think this is a really intense blue for a sky. Well, they get like that, you know. But this is not the finished painting. This will go through several stages. I think I want to get more dark back down there. Now I still have in my mind's eye where the pencil line is, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's just a guide. So if I just sort of do that a few times, I want there to be a really dark transition there. So I'm going to not add any more oil, but what I'm going to do is just shove a load of royal blue on the end of the brush. It'll dissipate quite quickly. So if I... Okay, so royal blue, all I'm going to do is put that down there because that will start to be the sea later. And I'm just going to remind you, one of the hardest things to do, I mean, if you're painting this, or if I was painting this and there wasn't a camera there, I'd be sitting bang in the middle like that, and I could do a line across there dead straight. If you stand to the left of a painting and try to do a horizontal line, it will always go downhill, always does. So I'm going to get in the way and I'll cut myself out, because otherwise you're just going to be looking at my back. So I'm going to fix the horizon. You'll see it on Zoom now, but on YouTube it'll magically get fixed. So excuse the back of my head for a moment. So there we have a horizontal line, always very important. And I'll try to keep that line, but I will make a few undulating shapes down here ready for the sea. And this is like a flat X shape. If you do that, you'll start to get a feeling of water in its basic form. Okay, so that starts to sort of hint at water coming in a moment or two. And then back to the bit that's definitely the easiest part of the painting, and that's the sky. And I'm going to be a little bit adventurous here. I've got all this Japanese red, so I'm going to just sort of mix that with some Payne's grey. And you may think it's insane, but I haven't cleaned the brush yet. This has got everything on it. And I think we'll have a few dark, low-down clouds, really close to the horizon. And you probably have noticed that I've moved everything right down. The horizon was up there, and I've moved it down. So, as I said, the pencil line is just a guide. And all these colours that are going in here will give us a nice, sundry, quite slightly threatening sort of sky. Let's have a little bit up there, a little bit more there, why not? Got a gap, might as well fill it. And then I think, let's see, right, so one of my students, Lon, pointed out about composition and how a lot of paintings have their main point of interest here. That's the golden spot. And it always works for some reason. Although you can actually completely reverse it, but I think if you do that, you have to reverse everything. You have to take the weight of interest over here, but you can be quirky. You can have, say, an awful lot of interest, let me think, a lot of interest there in the lights, because our eye tends to go towards the light. But then you can do either a distant ship underneath that, or you can put one over here, which is alone and mysterious. I tend to go for the alone and mysterious look. So let's see. Let's put a couple of bits of dark there because we'll need them, and then just a light dark or two up there. These will all work through the lighter colours that I'll put on in a moment. So if I just sort of do that, and whatever you do, do not make a repeat pattern. You see, now, very simply, that and that is almost a complete repeat. So if you see anything like that, just break one of them up, leave one, destroy the other. Every shape that you put in, that's why I'm doing this all the time. See, I'm not sort of doing that unless I'm putting something flat on. But when I'm making cloud shapes, it's all over the place, you know. And trust me, it works. So this is all very, very basic blocking in. I still don't know quite what the sky will be like, but I'm getting a feel for it. Okay, so I'm going to smooth it out a bit. So before I smooth it out, I just want to make a few. Just want to thin the paint just a little bit more just here. By thinning the paint, I can put white on it without it getting muddied up. Don't want it muddied up. And a piece of paper is also good for other effects. Let me just see if I can show you. Right, so instead of just a smooth piece of paper and wiping it, you can also use, like I use on foliage sometimes, use a bit that's all loose and fluffy, like so, and put a few marks in with that as well. That can be quite interesting. And I think something a little bit unpredictable. Let's just put a belt of light just there, really thin paint, like so. I can think of a use for that later on. Okay, a big brush, biggish. How big do we want it? Let's have. Okay, so a brush that's never been used. Remove the hairs by doing this, and the bristles that are loose will just fly up. I don't know how many videos I've said that in now. Of course, if you only ever watched one of my videos and you've heard me say that, you've only experienced it once. But okay, that's ready and primed. Okay, so all this is the usual. It's this and this. Okay, not that and that. It's this and this. Now it looks, the brush will get stained along the top edge, but it's really, I'm using the side. It just seems, the paint just seems to gather there. So if I do this, as you can see, the paint is on the top edge. No matter how much I'm really flicking the brush over, but the paint always goes to the tip. Hardly any paint on there too. You're not actually trying to move paint. All I'm trying to do is blur what I've put on there. And I know this white area here, that'll all change pretty soon actually. As you do this, just sort of take the paint off. Don't worry about lines. This is making lines in the paint. Just a little bit, they'll all go. You can even go over the horizon, just a little bit like so. It is an unbelievably light touch. And in fact, I'm going to zoom in on this area in a moment for you, so you can see the sort of effects that you get close up. I've discovered when I'm making my videos that if I zoom in with the camera, it's much better quality than if I zoom in using the editing software. It tends to, enlarges the image so much you lose definition. So I'm going to zoom in a minute, just on this area down here, and you can see where the mysterious effect starts to appear. So as you can see there, if you use your imagination on that, you can possibly see light water, low cloud, distant hills, and they're sort of starting to appear. It's almost automatic, actually, which is why I put this light area, because it tends to hint that that might be a hill over there. That's the reason I do it. And you may see that there are streaks and lines in the paint there. Don't be afraid of things like that. It can actually add interest. So there's already clouds appearing up there that haven't been painted yet, and they'll be done in the next minute or so. So yeah, just I wonder how far I can zoom in to give you an idea. See, it's really quite rough and ready, but effective. Okay, right. So I'm going to start putting some white on there in a moment, but before I do that, no, let me rephrase that. I'm going to put some white on there with a brush, and then I'm going to put some white on with a palette knife. Now, when I use a brush to put white clouds on, it's because I actually want the paint to dig into what I've already put there. And I think I'm going to try and be exciting. I do this at least twice a year, if I can. It's always good to be unpredictable. And just sort of chuck in some pink and just see what it does. And again, you might think, oh, good grief, clouds are supposed to be white. No. Got to get that right out of your head. You do get them, obviously, but you also get clouds with a bit of colour in them. And I can recommend, I know I've said this before, if you're really into clouds and you want to paint clouds, look at some Dutch, well, I suppose landscapes. I would call them, some of them, skyscapes, where they will paint a picture which is a landscape, but portrait shaped. In other words, up on end. They're tall rather than wide. And they used to, Holland has some very big skies because they're basically out in the hills. So they added all kinds of colours into their clouds. A creamy colour. If you look at them, obviously the good thing about YouTube, isn't it? One of the good things, anyway. Just go on YouTube and put in Dutch. Try putting in Dutch skyscape. See what you get. But look at the way they painted clouds, and it was absolutely incredible. Now, the other thing is, what I don't do, I don't paint blue and then paint a hard white line up against the blue. Again, if you want to do that, feel free. That's most of your life taken up. But if you want to do it reasonably quickly with a bit of life in it, because it doesn't matter how beautifully you paint hyper-realistic clouds, they quite often won't have life. You've got to have that sort of spontaneous spark. So let's just have something, usual tricks, something leading you down, something leading you back, all that sort of stuff. So, but at the moment, this is all, again, this is the next stage of blocking in, because I'm going to go over this again with a big brush. So let's just get the colours down first. Now, if you're going to have a creamy coloured sky, you'd have to do that in the glazing stage. If you try to add yellow to your whites to give a creamy colour on blue, you'll get a green, so maybe avoid that. So let's just sort of, as I said, put some life in the sky. Do not. I hate telling people what to do. I like to give advice. If you find yourself hesitating in one area for too long, to get it absolutely right, then that's the time. That's when your brain should say, do something a little bit unpredictable. Put something like that in it. Okay, much more lively, much more natural, and you end up, as they say, and I think I said it in my last video, painting the wind. Okay, so just a few daubs there. Let's have a little rogue cloud just there. And then over here, it's getting so dark. See, the clouds are almost invisible. They almost disappeared into the dark sky. Oh, you don't have to use one of these brushes, by the way. But I'll give you a quick glimpse of what I'm talking about, because it seems a bit mean to taunt you like that, doesn't it, without showing you. But you can get a fan brush. I've got so many fan brushes. I clicked the buy button twice and I got double the amount that I really wanted, I think. But anyway, I'll probably use them all up. So there we are, a fan brush, a little bit of paint on it, not much, just and a touch more oil than I would normally put on, just sort of twiddle it around like that. So in other words, put your brain into neutral. Just sort of put some shapes on. There we go. There's a few clouds there, and then one fill up there. Okay, so that's that. And then we go over it with the blurring brush. And just basically every time I do that, then I knock it back. Okay, so this is the knocking back process. Same thing. Very, very light touch. You don't want to move the paint, you just want it to go slightly blurred. Okay. Okay, so always remember, just a few. I usually go to about 7 or 8, then I wipe it. Any more than that, all you're doing is picking paint up and moving it somewhere else. You don't want to do that. There's a few things there I'm going to have to fix, and I'll show you a quick way to do that without adding more paint and without wiping too much off. It's quite a nice effect, and it involves this brush. So I'm almost ready to do that, but first things first. Okay. Now, if there's any bit of cloud that you're not too keen on the shape of, then you use the corner of the brush. So let's see, what don't I like? I quite like these. Funny enough, that little cluster there is quite nice. You'll see it at the end of the video. I'll photograph it and it'll be clearer. But, I think I'm almost ready to show you what I was going to do with this there, and it's dead simple really. Just not quite there on the drama yet. I just need a few more moments. Of course, you can also go downwards. Let's see what that does. Again, unbelievably light. Trying to give a feeling of a bit of rain over there, maybe. Let's have, maybe the rain should be at a slight angle. Now this is putting a sort of shadow onto the sea, which, can you see that? I doubt it actually. So far, oh, sort of, you get the idea, I think. So which way should the rain go? The rain could go that way, the winds are blowing this way, so I think they should actually go that way. So let's change the angle of those. And I can't emphasize enough, don't even, at the moment, don't actually think of clouds, just think of, I don't know how to put it really, hard to explain. How do you explain it? I suppose you have to abstractize your clouds. I like these little dots so much, I'm going to have more dots. I have one or two there. I've got this thing about fragmenting clouds. I wonder why. Who knows? I blame my parents. It's the best way, isn't it? Okay, so one or two there. Why not? Don't forget, usual thing, off the edge. Got to go off the edge. Always, you know, convince yourself that the painting, the edge of the painting, is just the edge of a window. You're looking out through a window. In fact, I'm thinking of painting a picture. It's been on my mind for a while now. I like Andrew Wyeth paintings, and he was really fond of windows. He'd paint a window with a certain amount of detail. I mean, admittedly, most of his paintings were, I think, egg tempera or watercolour, but so you know, it's quite, and they weren't awfully big. Some of them are really quite small. But he'd paint a window, and you get a little spider's web painted in it, and you'd even paint the dust on the window pane, and very effective. Anyway, I was thinking, I live in a very old house, and there are some windows like that. I was thinking of doing something of that type. Okay, so this brush, these clouds here, I've seen clouds like that, but I don't want them in this picture. So all I'm going to do is just this sideways, but go carefully. You don't have to completely destroy them, but just sort of just knock the bottoms off them. And you can use the corner just to fill any holes that you might have in your sky. Can't have sky holes. Okay, just sort of, you know, anything that you think is getting too much attention and it doesn't really deserve the attention, then you just take it off. Now, this dark cloud here sort of hits me that it looks like I don't know, what's the word? Yeah, wrong shape, that's the word. That's what I was trying to think of. So I'm just going to sort of just change the shape of the shadow a bit. I think it wants to go up a bit more. Just there. And a bit more. So this is Payne's grey, ultramarine, and Japanese red. Let's just have that going up there, I think. Okay, that's all the amount of time you need to give it. The faster you can work, and I know people say, you know, take practice. It does. But practice fast. Try that. That's an interesting proposition. Practice quicker. In other words, go into it feet first and just see what happens. You'll get spontaneity. And once you produce your first painting that you are pleased to display and have no feelings of embarrassment about it. Well, you shouldn't anyway, really. But if you were dreaming of having a future as an artist and having exhibitions, you've got to be able to have the confidence to put your stuff out there and not worry really what people say or think. This might make me unpopular, so I'm saying it off camera. I might need to cut it out. But most critics are people who want to paint but can't. I don't mean that in a nasty way. I mean, they just can't paint. They've tried maybe, but they know what's good. But generally, I don't know, generally they do it because the magazine or the newspaper pay them to. All right, that might need cutting out, but we'll see. Right, so we've got all these interesting cloud shapes. And going back to how you abstractize clouds, you just sort of Well, you've got to go through several processes, and the main one is don't be afraid of failure, because it will happen. It's going to happen. And expect it. There, so now if you expect it, there's no reason to be surprised by it. So just accept it and then fix it. So everything can be fixed. So I've got some white on here now with no added oil. Any oil that I'm going to use is already on the picture. Just going to stand back and look from here. Okay, so I'm thinking of, I really like this effect. This is where you, well, there's two ways, two approaches. So first of all, I'm just going to put some white up here. I've always found it fascinating how you can get basically a knife, a piece of steel, and you can make shapes that are convincing as clouds without a brush. Just, I guess, practice. So let it flow. If the knife is rigid and hard and unforgiving, then your hand movements have to be the thing that soften it. So this is, again, this is just another stage. This is not the final cloud, but I'm just adding fluffy, not fluffy, no, it's the wrong word, isn't it? I'm just adding catch lights. And frequently standing back to look how it's going. Okay, right, so now I like the idea that this is actually a hill, the other side of the water, without doing this thing where you draw a shape or paint a shape, you know, with a hard edge. You can do that if you want, but I like the sort of fuzziness, hence tonalism. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put some light the other side of this hill, like so. Not light, well, yeah, light, but it'll be a cloud. I've got a nice lump of paint. It's not a big lump, but I mean there's a lump of paint there. So I'm just going to sort of use this to push it away from the land. So I've produced a semi-hard line there. So that's a cloud poking up over the hill. Not finished yet. It's going to go on a bit further. And in fact, I think it'll break up a little bit, so there'll be a little bit appearing here. And then over there, but here it's going to start to fizzle out. Let's just push it and make the paint, hope I'm not in the way, I can't really see, but make the paint fizzle out as it goes into the shadow. It'll do it on its own, like so. Good. And then let's have a bit more. It doesn't have to be a continuous line. A line is always more interesting when it is multifaceted. So there are some little sharp angle changes in there. There's some fuzzy bits and there's some crisp bits. And let's just take it along there a little bit more and just have a few more fuzzy bits there. And what else should we do there? Let's take it off to the edge. I think I have to because it's something I always preach, and you should always practice what you preach. Okay, so that disappears over there. Good, that's starting to work. It's got it's contrast that does it. Let me just zoom in again. Okay. So okay. So let's see. We've got that. That's going to be nice. We've got some nice broken cloud there, but then I think it has to sort of pull us up. So let's have a lump of paint there, and a few bits taking us down that way. When you do this sort of cloud with a palette knife, don't forget, I put white paint there, but then I stopped here because that's turned blue. It's not that I've run out of paint, it's actually just turned blue. So always keep your palette knife clean. Get more white. And the good news is that I've got a little camera actually on order soon. No, it is on order, and it will be here soon, which will be pointing at my palette. And I know people like to see it, but it's I guess it's important to some people. I think it's sort of boring because I don't do a lot of mixing on the palette, really. It's mostly done on the picture. So, but I'm sure, I hope it's useful to some people. Right, so this has got to the point now where it needs another go over with this brush, the big brush. And again, now, because I'm building up the white, I've got to be even more careful about how I touch the board. Okay, I want to go along there, but I don't want to ruin the top of the mountain. So with that, you've got to be a little bit careful. And I'm just going to sort of work away from it. Good. Right, I think it's time to do some sea. Get the sea and the beach sorted out. That'll give me time to think a little bit about what I'm going to do with the rest of the sky. I think that's it for now. Okay. Now then, beaches. Beaches don't actually have to be sand colour. You know, there's so many different coloured beaches around the world. It can be anything really. So I quite like a sort of rusty brown with a hint of yellow in it. But that could be because I'm English. So this shadow here, maybe that's too dense. I'm just thinking of when I get back to it, I might actually I might open it up a little bit in there, just a bit more. Right, so the water. So the first thing to do, and this is tricky, see, because if I use yellow ochre, which I will use, I've got to be a little bit careful because it'll mix with the blue. We don't want it to be too green. Sea does get green, obviously. Okay, biggish brush. I tell you what, I'm going to... Let me think. Okay, I'm going to add another colour. So I'm sure, because you've been here before, you've probably got red ochre handy. So grab your red ochre. Look at... when you get time, look at, again, Turner or Constable. Look at the colours that they made their beaches. Every colour under the sun, but they did use an awful lot of brown. Red ochre and yellow ochre. And it's not, I can't give you any quantities. I mean, even if I had a camera on the palette, it wouldn't make much sense. It's just a feeling I'm after. I suppose you could say I'm using an equal amount of each colour. And it may look just like red ochre on here, but that actually does have some yellow ochre in it. So let's see what we get. Let's try and make an interesting beach. And the way you make an interesting beach is texture. Okay, so this is where it's obviously the beach is going to meet the sea, roughly there. And we're going to put it on a slight, I don't know, a slight downward. Yeah, well, no, it doesn't have to, does it? It could undulate a bit. Let's just not worry about it. Okay. And I'm going to put a bit of extra oil in that because I want it mobile. And I suppose you could, the way to remember that is that, well, the beach is mobile because it keeps getting hammered by the sea. So think of it that way. It needs a bit more oil in it because it's going to be mobile. Okay, let's have that there. Right, no precision. My teeth are whistling a lot today. No precision. Let's have a look. Yeah, good, that's a nice angle. So this is where you've got to be a little bit brave. Let's just see what happens. So I'm going to push the rusty beach colour into the blue colour. And it is actually producing just the right sort of green, funnily enough. It's going to be sea green, not grass green. Now, when this is dry, you can do all kinds of stuff with the beach. I'll try and do as much as I can in this sitting, but you can add textures. And you could even, I've done it before, but not for a long time. I've even used a toothbrush with paint on it and flicked the toothbrush at the painting to give lots of small pebbles. But that was when I was younger. I'm not really interested in actual detail, just the illusion of detail. So there we are, a nice sort of slightly blended edge, nothing too much. Don't want to go over the top with that. Okay, now on top of that, I'm just going to put a few bits of stronger red ochre with a little bit of Payne's grey thrown in. It may not show much at this stage, but as I said, things build up, you know. And what does the beach do? When it gets wet, it usually goes darker. Let's just add a bit of darkness there. Although it can work both ways. Sometimes the water, sometimes the beach, when it's wet, doesn't go darker. It tends to look like that when the water has completely soaked off it, you know, the surface water. This, I want to keep this one so it looks as though it's wet most of the time. So maybe I'll do a mixture of both light and dark. Okay, that's good. Right, good. Now, same brush, not going to clean it much. I'll give it a quick wipe. When I say a quick wipe, literally just pull the paint off a little bit with some paper, just to take the main load of paint off. And what should we do to the water before we start putting waves on there? I think it needs some shadows. So let's have Ultramarine, Payne's grey, and in fact a little bit of the red as well. This is local colour, as they call it. Look at the Impressionist painters. Well, in fact, it works with quite a lot of the realistic painters as well, but local colour, it's where you have, supposing you had a portrait of a young lady sitting on a chair with a bunch of flowers, you know, typical Renaissance type painting. You'll see whatever's in the background sometimes reflected in the flesh tones. And it's there just to sort of tune everything in a bit. That's called local colour. So I'm going to attempt some waves over here. There will be a hint of some waves in the distance on the shore over there, but I'll leave that to last. So here I just want some shadows in the water. Now, when you paint the sea, you've got to be aware that it's like clouds. They're moving all the time. So try to get that in your brush stroke. And I don't mean humpy, 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 okay? And the office insect, go away. And I don't mean little U shapes in the water either. It's got to be, it's got to suggest water. Sometimes in a painting, a suggestion is better than anything. I'm just going to pull a bit of light across there. So this, even though this is dark, I can still do this. I can pull a bit of light from there back into there. But it's light with a bit of red in it. So maybe that's reflecting off the sky. And then I can put a few shapes. actually in there to hint at water. I don't really want people to look at the water much. I want them to look at the waves when we get that in. But I guess it's, how do I put it? I want them to look at everything, frankly, until I decide, or you, when you're painting your picture, where you decide you want people to go. And this water, by the way, right, there's the tight way to paint water, and there's the loose way. I always tend to go to the loose way. I much prefer a suggestion of something. These bits I'm leaving white are left for the same reason with the clouds. I can put white on those without having to fight too much with the other colours, because it will get swamped quite quickly. Okay, so it's a very, very simple, basic bit of sea, bit of water. Not sure what's going to happen over there. I might, yeah, I've got an idea. Right, I might do, if I can do it, I might try something with a Q-tip. That would probably work. Okay, so a very slight, oh, whoops. Total disaster there, not quite. Okay, just changes of colour in the water. We've got a bit of sort of pinky colour there, so let's put a little bit of slightly red colour in the sea. Oh, and there's always this thing you've got to remember with the sea, unless it's like a mill pond, which does happen, doesn't reflect much because it's all so choppy. There are so many facets to it. It doesn't actually reflect. And if you can look through loads of pictures on the internet of the pictures of the sea, and you won't see a lot of reflection. If you do see it in a touristy type photograph, it's probably because someone has retouched it. So there we are, just a hint of shadow, nothing too much, and then hopefully, well, maybe we'll have one darker shadow. Let's do it. Right, this is how brave you've got to be. This is so brave. I mean, let's just sort of push in that lump of dark, just like that. There. See what we get, and then just leave that. Take it off the edge. Okay, and we'll have that as a little bit of shadow that will pop up several times when I put the white on it. Okay, so over there, I just had this idea of using a Q-tip. Can I find a Q-tip? Right, a Q-tip and a metal ruler. So I'm hoping I can do this without covering up too much. All I'm going to do is put that on the painting and then just run the Q-tip along top of it really quickly. And hopefully, let me see, okay. Hopefully I won't get in the way. So I'm going to put that there. I don't really care that my knuckle is making a mark. All I'm going to do is just sort of put a line on there. I quite like the knuckle mark. I might turn that into a feature. Okay, not quite what I wanted, but we're getting there. It doesn't matter what I do in the blue down here, it's just everything's fixable. Okay, let's try and keep the ruler steady this time. All I'm after is just a little bit of light in the distance, and I think I might leave it at that. Yeah, they don't have boat potential, so they're just going to disappear. Okay, so let's get some waves now. I fancy a wave, and this is fun. This. Right. So water. When it crashes on a beach, it's a very reddish beach, I know, but I actually quite like that. I've seen beaches like that. But in another sitting, I might darken it down, but I'll darken it down using all kinds of textures. And in fact, though, before I go along this with a palette knife, I just want to sort of speckle it up a bit. Just make some lights and darks. They won't all show up on the video from that distance, but you'll see them at the end. And I might stick in a bit of light, just catching a top of a dune or something. Okay, so it's just basic texture. And a drag or two. Let's have a drag. You see now, can't emphasise enough, not a lot of paint on that. If there was a lot of paint, this would ruin your painting. But because there's not too much paint on there, it just, all I'm doing is making it more interesting. Right, that's interesting enough. Palette knife. Let's see what we get. Now this is this ironing effect. And it does tend to work. So let's just sort of get some waves on it. Okay, so all I'm doing, as I drag the knife back and forth, you get bits like this here. So remember that bit. I'll show you later when I photograph it. Which break up. Keep them. Don't try to be perfect. Let the paint fragment, because it will start to have the character of water. So I've got that shadow, so I think I might use the shadow and pull this up on the top edge of it. Like so. So what I do when I do this is I don't try to make each individual bit look like water with waves. What I do is I look at the picture as a whole and see how it relates to other things in the painting. That's just there. Okay, now when people paint crashing waves, you'll see it in many paintings. Okay, they will get a brush, say this size, and they'll start doing these little rounded curly over bits. Does that make sense? Curly over bits. It doesn't look right. If you see a realistic painting of the sea, chances are that every inch, you know, there are some amazing photographic type style painters of crashing waves, and it's highly specialised. It takes a long time, and another reason why I don't want to do it. So try to avoid that sort of everything curling over with these weird. I think you might know what I mean. If not, at the end of the class, I'll show you on the internet. But try to get the effect without actually having to add them. So if I just use this with a very light touch along the bottom edge of this wave, the top part is probably going to be slightly more crisp than the underside, because the underside is fragmenting. You can, if you want to splash on it on the top later, sometimes it's better to leave it until the end, or until it's dry rather. So let's just see what we get. So as I said, I'm not after detail, I'm after sort of fluidity. I want it to look fluid and wet. Now in some ways this is actually a lot easier working on a chair, but in other ways it makes you realise how heavy your arms are. So I'm going to bring the water onto the beach now. So I've got a nice lump of paint there. Let's have a little bit there in waiting. Let's have a bit more there. And then over this side, I think that's probably enough. So now it's the back and forth stuff. And you need to know when to stop. It's just one of those things. You get a feel for when it's just gone a bit too far. Of course, when waves break on beaches, they pick up sand, and the water becomes sand-coloured. I will have to stand in a minute to do this, because even though in some ways it's easier to do, in other ways it's quite difficult because light is bouncing off that straight into my face. But okay, let's try it. Let's stand up, see what that looks like. Good. Not too bad. Right, now along the beach I'm going to just get an older brush. Right, what I want to do now is pull a lot more of this down into the sand. Started it off with the palette knife, but I want to finish it with a brush so that we get slightly softer edge. And in fact, I think possibly I might need to add more waves. Okay, let's just add a few up there. Okay. There are wonderful things, palette knives. Once you lose the fear, just use it as a stiffer brush, I suppose. I think I want a little bit of something there. Oh, actually, no. I'll tell you what. I'll leave that for a minute. I've got another idea. Not happy about that yet. I think I need to break the top a bit. Again, same with everything, you know, be random. Don't have any repeat patterns. And the other thing is, strange one this, some people will argue till they're blue in the face, but they say there are no straight lines in nature. Well, there aren't in some things, there are in crystals and I'm sure something else, but with water and sky, it's very rare that you will get a straight line. Oh, you might get, well, you get contrails, or contrails, con or com, not sure, but they're never completely straight. And you won't see one in my pictures either. Sky graffiti. Okay, just a hint of the odd one or two. Well, it sort of looks wet. Wettish. All right, back to the camera. I keep going back to the camera. I usually mention this because I want to see the picture small, and it takes too long to go right down the other end of the room. Okay, let's have something in there just to break up what's going on. And then we've got water coming down onto the beach here, and I think we should have a streak or two going off that way. And the only reason for that is, why not? Water does that. Okay, that's looking good. I think that's going the right way. So that's going to take you in. There's two ways in, you see. There's this one. There'll be that one. This will hopefully keep you occupied for a moment. And then it's directly up to there. Now, I put that white blob over there. What I'm going to do, hopefully, is just smudge it in rather. And just turn it into just a bit of light water below the edge of the land. And then I think this is basically the blue that I use everywhere, the same brush rather. The beauty of oil paint again, you see. I can sort of go over that and just sort of mute it a bit, like so. So the question I have to ask myself, do we want a hint of a white sail? Do I or don't I? Looking at that sky, I think anyone sailing out there would be a bit foolhardy. So maybe I'll just put them on the lighter side. Sometimes it works. Let's just try it. No, that's going to be too much paint. Right, this might work. So rather than have paint all the way along the edge of the palette knife, just have a bit on the end. Like so. Now then, will that work? Will it look like a sailboat? Oh yeah, that's a sailboat. I'm not into painting all the rigging. I just want to show you how little you can do to suggest something. So there's one boat. Still got a bit of paint left on here. So let's have another one, and this one's leaning slightly. It's in the breathing. It's like you have to do it when you breathe out. Yeah, why not? Let's have a few. So we've got a little yacht club over there somewhere. Yeah, just a few marks. I'm not going to go any further. I think it suggests what I want to suggest. Okie dokie, almost there. Right, so let's have again a bit more white. Hopefully, yeah, I think you can see everything now. So looking at the shoreline, I'm looking for what might be lacking weight-wise. And when I say weight, it's like okay, it's slightly sky dominant, but it's the beach and the sea are broken up into quite nice equal-sized chunks. However, I want people to bounce around from there and here. Obviously, a quick glimpse at the boats, and then back again. So all this sort of stuff, where you do, as I said before, these angles. See, if I just sort of, let's get a bit of surf. A little bit of surf on the beach down there. A few little dribbles. Do them in sort of wiggly lines like that. That's quite a nice effect if you do that. Little wiggly lines. It sort of hints at water. But I want this to lead you in. Is it leading you in? I think it might be. Right, and the top edge, right, I like this. And I don't like the top edge there. I'm happy over here, that's okay. But that bit just needs a bit of white added. Then I'm going to go back to the clouds very briefly, and then that'll be it for the day. So all I want to do is just sort of mess up this top edge here, just to give you a feeling that the sea carries on over the top edge of the wave. Yeah, I think that might do. Okay, something not quite right there. So I'm going to pick up some of the paint that's on there. There's quite a lot there. Let's have a sweep there. Why not? Okay, right. Back to those clouds. I just want to build up a little bit of cloud just under there. So it looks like there might be a thunderstorm in the distance. Now, I can tell you now, when I zoom in, you're going to love that. That effect is actually really nice. The only downside to what I've done is that I've got 1, 2, 3. I don't like that, so I'm going to turn it into a 2. So I'll extend this one. Hopefully I'm out of the way. Just going to extend that across so that it becomes one giant sort of interesting cloud. Right, softening brush. Just now, what I've done there is I really like it, but I've just got to knock it down just a touch because there are some peaks on the paint. But you'll see in a minute what you can do with peaks. So, you play with light. That's what I'm after there. Do I want it that much though? And I don't think I do. Although that looks pretty cool. Okay, right, almost done. Right, I'm just going to do something to the hill here. Okay. Right, I think I will probably stop there for now, but this is definitely a two-parter, I think. Not sure what I would do in the second part. Finding it hard to stop. Some days, you see, I can just sort of get to this stage. I don't know how long I've been painting, but I feel I can go on a bit longer, as long as everybody's happy for me to. Like I said, I have no idea what time it is, so I don't know. Right, what I'm thinking is just, I've still got 3 of these. I definitely want to lose that. Can't have the dreaded 3. So I'm going to definitely connect more strongly through here. That might take away the attention. Sort of less. Yeah, it's okay. Maybe I shouldn't worry too much. I keep telling people not to worry and then I start worrying. So let's just put that there. And to here. Maybe I'll just leave it. Yep, I think I'll leave it. Right, I'm just going to blur it and then we're done. And before I stop, if you are using cheap chip brushes, which I am, the same as me, when you stop painting, if you're going to not come back to it for a few days, make sure you get the loose bristles off. You don't want to find them after you've varnished your painting, because otherwise you've got to wipe the varnish off and fix it. And it's fiddly. It means lots of turpentine to actually dilute the varnish. Okay, I think that might be it for now. That's still strange. You see now, when you start to watch one of my videos, you're trapped. It's like the Hotel California. You can't actually leave, because I just can't leave it like this. I've got to do something. So I've got this here. I've got to show that hint of a hill there. I think it was just a little bit too dark. So let's just put some light just there. How's that? Another look in the camera. Now that was the end of the class as far as my zoomers were concerned. This is now just over a day later, and I spotted something. Wasn't awfully happy with one of the clouds, and maybe you might have already spotted the problem, but if I mention it now, I'm sure you'll understand. This looks like a nuclear bomb going off here. I can't have that. So I'm going to change it, basically. I'm going to use a brush. It's still almost as wet as it was when I painted it, so it'll be okay for the drying times, you know, the 2 layers. So I just want to put a little mark or two just here, just to lose that sort of stem. Well, upward blast, I suppose, would describe it probably better. And then do something about the actual shape of this on top. So I'm going to take that way a little bit. This is one of the original brushes I was using. It's starting to get a little bit stiff, but it's okay. Okay, so there we go. Now what do I do here? The thing is, if I increase that, it'll make it look more like a nuclear blast. So I guess what I need to do is actually think about it for a second. Yeah, and I think what the problem is that shouldn't be light in there. So I'm going to blue that a bit. Let's get a little bit of bluery on that. Ultramarine and royal blue, and just see what happens to it. Maybe it just needs a little bit of, tricky one. It's like this pareidolia thing, you know, you get all kinds of things appearing in your skies, but also you get the odd nuclear explosions. I think we'll definitely leave that. I think we'll just sort of get a bit of blue through there. That'll do it. Just to separate it. That's better. Feel better already. I've been looking at it for quite a while, and I've been editing this video, which takes forever, I have to say. Editing a video of a Zoom class is actually longer than if it wasn't a Zoom class. If it was just a painting, I find it easier. I love doing the Zoom classes though. Get good energy from the group. Nicest bunch of people you could want to meet, frankly. And anyway, so there we are. That's denucleared. Still a bit of a strange. No, I don't know. No, I think I'm reasonably happy with that. Not ecstatic with that bit. So I'm just going to destroy it a bit. And the good news is the painting is sold already, so I'm quite pleased about that. And it'll be going off to America. As soon as I got it, well, as soon as it's dry enough and I varnished it, it'll it'll be on its way. One tiny little thing I want to do. Let's just point the camera down a bit. And it's just this area here. I don't know why, but I'm not quite happy with it. So I'm going to just do what I think will make me happy. And that is just to sort of get some little bits of broken up sea foam onto the beach, just a little bit more, and change the shape of this object. Just needs a couple of marks thrown in there, just to flatten it. It needs to have a touch of flatness, a flatness feeling to it. And this one here, desperately trying to keep out of the way. Just like the idea of a bit of light reflecting off the beach. I think that might do it. Yeah, I think that's enough. Okay, so there we go. So thanks for being here. Thank you very much to my Zoom group. Hope you've learned something. Hope you've enjoyed it. I mean, that's one of the main things. You're supposed to enjoy it, aren't you? And if you want to be a patron, usual stuff, there'll be a link below. There'll be a link to my website. There will be all kinds of links. Any links I can think of to put under there that are relevant will be underneath this video. So yeah, if you'd like to come to a class, please do. So that's it. Take care. See you soon. Bye for now.